Mitchy Cleary wanders in the top flight. This is Seven's number one man.
Oh, I know he's the number one man. I've given him a bow.
The numero uno.
Good afternoon, guys. Thanks for having me on board.
Mitch.
Schmick Studios, first time I've been in here.
Really? Oh, did Tom Browne, was he the one hogging it?
He was. He wouldn't let me in for some time. He's finally gone. Final cross in the rooms at Collingwood on the weekend, and we've seen the back of him.
And Tom got the good rooms because he's outgoing.
Well, we actually drew at the start of the day. He got Collingwood, I got Brisbane. I thought might have been on halfway through the last quarter when Charlie kicked that goal, but unfortunately I was in the rooms. We're just saying, I reckon the rooms weren't as bad as I was thinking because 5 or 6 players have kids, and all the 5 to 6, 7-year-old kids stormed into the room at the end. They wanted to kick the footy. They didn't care about the result. So it took a little bit of edge off the room in those Brisbane losers, but still a few tears were shed. Fair enough after what happened.
Yeah, but I know you're devastated, but as a former president of a club, we never got to a grand final, but if we had, the main thing, you're desperate to win, but the main thing you want to do is not have what happened to Sydney last year, where you just embarrass yourself. And Brisbane were far from that.
They were impressive, weren't they? And so many players stood up. Joe Danaher played one of his better games on the big stage. Charlie Cameron had some big moments. I think Hugh McCluggage's second half was huge. And the impressive thing of this Brisbane side going forward is their list, the core guys, Rayner, McCluggage, Berry, they're in the good age bracket. Yeah, Harris Andrews is only 26, and he's a colossal back there.
He was.
Collingwood had to almost change their game plan around what Harris Andrews was doing. So they'll get better, I reckon, and that's the one silver lining to come from the Lions. No guarantee they'll be back there, but I reckon that age group and what's coming in, potentially Tom Duday from the Crows as a free agent, we'll get to a few of those. They might lose Dev Robertson to the West Coast Eagles, but I think they'll keep the core of those guys.
Mitch, can I ask you, 1 beats 2, does that say something about the competition that it sort of works out quite well? You know, how
So 1v2 in the granny. First time since 2015, I think.
1v2 in the granny and 1 beats 2. It's sort of like
that's how it should be.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And what has happened with the pre-finals bye is it's made 5 to 8 a little bit more competitive. It means that when they win an elimination final, if they win a semi-final, they've had the week break. So I think it evens the competition a bit, but I think it's perfect for footy when we see 1v2 playoff in the grand final, and they were deserving spots, and I think the grand final spoke for itself.
Oh, the right team won, by the way. Yeah, it would. If Brisbane had managed to kick a goal late and win it, it would have been robbery. I thought Collingwood were the better team.
And how about some of their players? Pendlebury, he's 17 games off 400. Sidebottom kicks one from 55, puts it over the fence. Tom Mitchell, there were stages during the year when everyone questioned whether he was in their best 22, and he proved exactly why. At the end of last year, they went after him, and then a guy by the name of Ian Bobby Hill.
Oh, no.
They gave up a second rounder for him last year, a future second rounder, which Collingwood winning the flag means it's picked 36. That'll get pushed back into the 40s by the time compo picks and free agency, priorities come through. So extraordinary set of circumstances.
7. Yeah. He could have kicked 7.
And
as a small forward in a grand final.
100,000 people, he had the meeting out of the palm of his hand.
And don't you love, didn't he watch Cyril highlights all morning?
Yeah.
Isn't that gorgeous? What a great way. Because I was thinking about it in the morning when I was having a swim. I was wondering what all the players were doing to get ready. I wonder what all their different, techniques and superstitions or whatever.
So I'm out on the ground, Mitch, waiting for the official presentations to finish. And then we've got normally about 20 minutes, 25 minutes to fill before Haim takes over down in the rooms. So I'm standing there as they're all going around the circle of players. And Nathan Murphy, I know, we had him on last week. Yep. His dad and my older brother are great mates, so I've known Nathan since he's a kid. So gave him a big hug. Anyway, and I said, good on you, mate, couldn't be happier for you. I then turned to go back on the stage, and I got bear hugged myself. I turned around as Jack Ginnivan, who I've never met. Never met him.
Really?
Yeah, we've had him on the show, but I officially have never met him.
Did you think you're a horse trainer?
But it just was so cool to watch these young men.
What do you think about the pre-races the night before? So I was at the Moonee Valley races.
Did you see him?
I didn't see him with my own eyes, but he was in the box with Cam Munster and Christian Welsh from the Storm Boys. They were enjoying themselves, given they were out of the finals. I reckon half a dozen people in the space of an hour came up to me and said, have you seen Jack Ginnivan? I said, surely not. But
Mitch,
the more I asked
excuse
about
me,
it...
Mitch, as the new number one reporter in town, should have you been to the
That
races?
is a good question. I did drive home. Jack Ginnivan was on the waters, but I personally don't have an issue with it. I was interested to hear Craig McRae suggest that if he had his time again, maybe Jack Ginnivan wouldn't have done that, but it just goes to show where this kid's mindset's at.
Well, 2 of the 3 Brisbane Lions wins in the early 2000s, the Scott boys were playing golf at the National. They weren't at the parade.
Yeah.
They drove all the way down to the National and played golf all afternoon. So
I'm a bit whatever works.
Yeah, exactly right. If you're comfortable and you're going to get to the line the next day happy and ready, then I'm a bit, as long as you're not out at a nightclub, which I don't think anyone is.
Speaking of the Scott boys, they weren't at the Brisbane reunion yesterday, but Craig McRae was. So how about his 48 hours? Welcomes a baby girl, Maggie, 7 a.m. on the day of the game, wins the premiership, goes to the Collingwood family day, and then still has time to go visit his 03 premiership mates with Leper from the club. Pretty impressive.
Well, Scott boys weren't there, I guess, because they didn't play in that game, did they?
That's
I
a
think
good
they
point.
both missed 03. Brad had a broken leg and Chris was going to come in for Lappin, and then Lappin passed that test and played. So
And
I
good
guess
chance they were down the National playing golf.
probably playing golf for the National. Exactly right. Now, what else are we taking before? I know next time next bit we do with you is going to be about player movement. What else out of the grand final? Anything else from a story point of view?
First bounce, I think it'll be a talking point over the summer as to whether they keep the bounce. A lot of umpires are against it because they feel it puts a lot of pressure on them. Razor Ray's had his difficulties with it, and it's a big part of why he has been overlooked for some games previously with his ability with his shoulder to be able to bounce the ball. Does it stay full time? Is it just for the first part of the game? That'll be...
Well, it's the second year in a row that I reckon the bounce has been recalled to start a grand final, which is disappointing. I don't know why Matt Stevic didn't bounce it, by the way. He's a fantastic bouncer. I would have just given it to him.
Yeah. And then in terms of the Lions, as we mentioned, I think their list will only get better. Tom Browne from the Crows is a strong chance to go there. He'd been weighing up sort of Collingwood, Brisbane. I think that the Lions are in the box seat. Dev Robertson's got a big offer from West Coast as what happens out of him. And the Pies we'll talk about. Goldie's an option because Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox have carried the load this year. Understand there's a bit of interest from Collingwood's end in Todd Goldstein. It feels a bit like
Goldie
the Mitchell...
about 100?
No, 35.
That's 100.
But he's actually been incredibly...
That's
old for a footballer.
Yeah,
but
would you do
he's
that?
incredibly durable, Goldie.
Yeah.
He plays all the minutes, very rarely misses. I think he would be brilliant, actually.
Essendon have a look at him as well as Kilda to back up Rowan Marshall. Sam Draper's groin is a big watch, whether at Essendon, whether he continues on through January, February with some surgery. So Goldie's got a few options. Collingwood is one of them.
Yeah. I would love to see him play for Collingwood because I think if he goes there, he will be their number one ruckman. He won't be at Essendon if Draper's fit.
Yeah.
He will be a backup.
Footy reporter Mitch Cleary has stuck around.
All right, very interesting time of year this Top Flight for footy fans because players start moving everywhere.
Yep, I get yep.
And they want to actually improve their list, like you at your Saints.
Yep, I know. I want to ask Mitch a question about my Saints.
Well, you go on there. You
Oh,
may as
now
well open the
okay.
batting.
I was just going to ask Mitch first. Could he do draft for dummies? Because I've been working in footy. Sorry, I've been talking to people who talk footy for a long time, and I find the draft still a little bit confusing. So
It's getting more confusing.
Oh, Mitch, I don't know how you get your head around it, but I do want to ask you about my boy I care about, which is Jade Gresham. He's a free agent.
Yeah, geez, you're all over that.
Thank you very much.
8
Ramsey
years.
just handed me that note.
Minimum 8 years at St Kilda, which qualifies him for free agency. So he's a restricted free agent, which means the Saints have the right to match the bid, but I think he will move on. There's a few clubs that have shown interest in him. Essendon is at the top of that list. They've got salary cap room, the Bombers. So what we expect with this scenario is the Bombers will come with an offer. The Saints will get compensated with probably a second-round pick, and they'll let Jade Gresham walk. Whereas this time last year, you remember the Jeremy Cameron one at 2 years ago at the Giants, where the Cats came with an offer, but the Giants thought, well, our compo pick isn't going to be good enough. We'll match the bid and force a trade. So a little bit confusing, but I expect Jade Gresham to leave. Essendon is the front runner. Carlton showed a bit of interest. I think that might have waned a little bit. Hawthorn's been around the mark, but I expect Jade Gresham to be on the move.
So Ben McKay, while we're talking Essendon.
Yeah, so he's nominated there. It's a 5 or 6 year deal to go to the Bombers. There had been some question marks around his medical and a knee injury, but he's requested to go to the Bombers. Now, this is the most fascinating free agent of all because if the deal is big enough at the Bombers, it'll mean North Melbourne get a first-round pick, which is after their first pick, which is pick 2 currently, which becomes pick 3. So North could get pick 2 in the draft and then pick 3 through Ben McKay if we think the deal is over $750,000 a season for 5 or 6 years. So I think it will be... I think they'll find a way where the deal will be front-ended enough that the money up front where he'll be able to guarantee a first-round pick. It means that the Bombers won't have to give up a draft pick for him.
Paddy Dow?
I think he's going to head to St Kilda. There's a bit of interest from Sydney as well, but the Saints have been into him for a long time. Sauce was obviously with him at the Blues. Now Sauce is leading the list at the Saints. So they need a bit of extra midfield depth. They were shown up a bit this year, the Saints. Paddy Dow's looking for opportunity. I think he'll get that at Moorabbin.
James Harms, premiership player at Melbourne.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. He's on a 5-year deal 4 years ago. So he's got 1 year left on his deal at the Demons. He's been forced out of that midfield with all the stars they've got in there. There's a few clubs that have got interest in him. Richmond is one of those. Now, Adam Uze was with him at Melbourne. Now he's the coach of Richmond. Could be a link there for James Harmes, but I do expect him to be on the move. James Jordan's a premiership teammate of his. He's going to Sydney. He's requested a trade as a free agent, given he was delisted a few years ago. It qualifies him for free agency. Adam Tomlinson had been looking around, but he's been told, we need you to stay at Melbourne at this stage.
Esava Ratugolea, Geelong.
Tried to get to Port last year when he was under contract. Now he's out of contract at the Cats. He wants to go to the Power on a 5-year deal. Now, not many players move on 5-year deals for anything less than a top 20 pick. The Power are going to try and get him for something between 20 and 30. This could be the one that goes the distance this trade period between the Cats and the Power. A bit of haggling to be done with Esava Ratugolea, but they've identified that's the one hole they need. They were really poor down back late in the year. They lost a few players through injury, the Power, and they need a big body like a Ratugolea to play on the big boys.
I mean, there's a lot of, I'm trying to think of the right word to use here, Masai Warrior. There's a lot of bullschlarking spoken
Correct.
out of clubs at this time of year. A lot of posturing. And I suspect that's what's happening with this Esava Ratugolea situation. But I look at the noise coming out of the Cats and I think, hang on a minute. You're happy to raid everyone else's list and take whoever you want from any other club.
Yep.
But as soon as someone tries to take one of yours, you crack them.
And often the Cats do it when the players are contracted at the other
Yeah,
team.
exactly.
Now Esava Ratugolea.
Good on them, by the way.
Yeah.
Every club's in it for what they can get, but you can't complain when someone else comes looking at your blokes.
And Chris Scott thinks, he's held this guy in such high regard for some time, but he did drop him at an important stage in the back half of the year, Ratugolea. So I expect him to get to Port. Brandon Zerk-Thatcher is another one at Essendon who, lucky they're getting Ben McKay, the Bombers, because they'll be thin down there if that one doesn't go through.
Twin.
Yep, the twin.
Yes,
So
twin.
Zerk-Thatcher, a South Australian boy, he'll get back to play for the Power. And it leaves the Cats maybe now looking for another key back.
Now, Mitch, I want to ask you important questions because I just looked at your phone, not looked at it illegally, but I just saw it. And there are about 5,000 texts, emails, messages. How the hell do you keep ahead of all this stuff?
Yeah, it's a busy time for the March to October now it is. You just said, do I get a break? Well, the next 3 weeks is probably the busiest part of the year with the trades and the amount of interest in it is off the charts at this time of the year. Who's going where? I guess who's the next Tom Mitchell or Bobby Hill is? Who are the next players who a team can go and get and help them win the premiership? So I'll get a bit of time off after October, but there's a lot of time on the phone. The screen time, you don't want to look at that, Bridge.
What's your self-care routine?
I walk the dog twice a day.
Nice. It's important, top flight.
Self-care.
I'm worried. I'm worried that Mitch will burn out. And he's only just started.
He's only just taken the mantle as the number one man.
It's a big thing. And I'm just thinking, I hope he's got a self-care routine, which it appears he has.
I do.
Works his dog.
Walks him too.
Good luck, mate. It is a massive time of the year. We look forward to having you over the next 2 or 3 weeks to tell us all about what is going on in this trade period.
Thanks for having me,
Thanks,
guys.
Mitch.